Meeting of the Amherst Township Trustees called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Abraham?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Euring?
Yes.
And Kish is here. I'll start with the August 13th regular meeting minutes of the Amherst Township Trustees. Meeting called to order at 7:01 p.m. by Lynch with a pledge to the flag. Roll call, Abraham, Lynch, Euring, and Kish were all present. Additional attendees were G. Lynch, Case Marsh, L. Ashley, and D. Moore. 8-124, motion by Lynch, seconded by Euring to approve the July 23rd, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented. Roll call was Lynch and Euring, aye. Abraham abstained. 8-224, motion by Lynch, seconded by Euring, moved to approve the financial reports and payment of items on the payment listing as presented and with reservations. All ayes. 8-324, motion by Lynch, seconded by Euring, moved to amend permanent annual appropriation measure for 2024 per Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.38 and 5705.40 to account for Redwood Development revenue and building official inspection fees. All ayes. Under audience concerns, D. Moore, who lives on Middle Ridge Road, his property abuts the Batten House ditch. Due to the storms last week, there are several trees down, plus other trees that have been down since the last cleaning, not to mention the beaver dam. He is inquiring when this will get cleaned. Trustee Lynch informed Mr. Moore that a grant application submitted by Amherst Township Board of Trustees for funding to restore this section of the Batten House ditch has been approved by the Lorain County Stormwater District. Several property owners have not yet signed easement agreements to allow restoration equipment on their property. Trustee Lynch recommended Mr. Moore contact Lorain County Stormwater District Director Don Romanchik by email. Under correspondence, Trustee Lynch noted we had a few more notifications regarding foreclosures, and Trustee Lynch also noted that we will keep the item regarding the fraud reporting and training from the Ohio Auditor of State, Keith Faber, for all township employees open until we have 100% completion. Fiscal Officer Kish will stay on top of sending out periodic reminders to complete this training. The training needs to be completed by 9/28/24. Fiscal Officer noted that we are down to 5 individuals that need to complete the training. Under reports, under zoning, Zoning Inspector D. Ambrosio was absent, so Trustee Lynch reported that there was a preliminary site plan review meeting held for property at the intersection of Pile South Amherst and Middle Ridge Roads on the northeast corner. Under Road, Park, and Cemetery, Road Superintendent Smarsh reported OPWC work has been completed, plus the extra work has also been done. The storm last week caused lots of trees and branches down throughout the township. The 07 International dump truck has been repaired and is running like a top. Parts for the playground equipment have been ordered. Lorain County Health Department inspection of our Class 4 composting area across the road, and we received an A+. Regular maintenance on equipment also being done. 8-424, motion by Lynch, seconded by Euring, moved for authorization to submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission Round 39 for funding of Rustic Hill Lane concrete replacement project, west side of Rosedale Avenue to 209 Rustic Hill in Hidden Valley subdivision. All ayes. Under Township Administrator, the $2,500 cemetery grant has been turned in and we are waiting for an answer. The cemetery plots that we discussed at the last meeting have been handled as a family matter. Working on the athletic contracts and getting all of them updated. She's been fielding calls from residents for appraisers due to the property tax increase. Complaints are being handled by the designated individual. Under unfinished business, Trustee Euring reported that Ohio Edison is behind on streetlight repairs due to the last week's storms. Trustee Euring also reported that he has contacted Don Romanchik but has not heard back regarding the credit on our stormwater fee for the gravel lot and drive at the yard waste lot. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, August 27, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Amherst Township Hall. 8-524, motion by Abraham, seconded by Euring to adjourn at 7:53 p.m. All ayes.
Are there any changes or corrections to the August 13th meeting minutes?
I have none.
Okay, I move to approve.
Second.
Lynch?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.
Abraham.
Yes.
You also have financial reports in front of you. You have your payment listing, and are there any other questions? Danny, you did ask me one prior. Anything else?
Yeah, and I don't, and I know it was prior to the meeting, so we should just cover it for the record to be in the public.
Yeah. Trustee Abraham asked what Atkins sanitation payment was for, and it was for a cleaning.
Okay, and then Chris, you also want to mention how you've got these investments are all laddered in terms of the term of maturity.
Yes. The investments are spread out. I already cleared it off my screen, but they're spread out from some coming due now all the way through 27, and I'll look into 28 when I reinvest the ones that are coming due.
Thomas Horseman got $79,000?
For the Redwood Development Building Inspection.
A lot of money, but that's what it is.
Are we paying that?
No.
No, 95,000 came in for the fees. We get 15%. Board of Building Standards in Ohio gets 3% or 5%?
3%.
And then he gets the remainder.
Yeah, Redwood actually will pay that, Denny, but it's a lot of money, but it's a lot of units. I thought the same thing when I first saw it. It's not something that's within our control how that is. Even the way our current agreement works, we take 15%, but the way the state has things set up, if you have a building department, that's what the fees are. You know, you would think that in a situation like this, since a lot of what you're doing is the same, you know, they're all units that have a pre-design, that it wouldn't take where you get charged for every single unit, but that's the way the state works it. So it's,
But we collected how much? 95,000?
It was 95,000 total, and that included the park assessment fees.
How much did our zoning inspector make?
I would have to, well,
it's going to be less than that, as
Yeah.
you said, Chris. There's 15% comes off the top from the building department to the township. Then you actually have a square footage charge, which Redwood was aware of that up front. It's not going to be close to this amount, but again, it
It's gonna
seems
be
like a
soon.
lot.
It's gonna be,
Yeah, that is, I know for the building department, to me, that's a lot, and it goes directly to the building official. When I first saw it, I equated, having been involved in business where you design a product, you prove out the product, you market the product, you sell the product. Well, when you're going through engineering, you review the design one time. But when you reproduce it, like Redwood, if you think about it as a reproduction of the same thing, you don't go back and re-inspect each one. You do it one time. The only time you check anything after that, if there's any change, deviation, variation, you will check that. But you don't go back and re-review or re-inspect everything that's already been approved. But again, this is the way, looking through the state statute, which I did do, you know, it seems like a large amount, but that is the way it gets calculated. And Redwood's very familiar with this, since they have these types of developments all over. Generally, they tend to be in municipalities more than townships, but they're aware of it up front, what that cost is. But it's not a cost to the township. It's a cost to the developer.
right.
You know,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's what it is.
Our portion was roughly
Enough
$14,250 is what our cut.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Our year-to-date revenue is $1,495,049. Our year-to-date expenditures are $999,517.53. And that does include the second half settlement has gone in.
Okay, are there any other questions on the financials? If not, then I'm going to make a motion to approve the financial reports and the payments of the items on the payment listing as specified in the document provided by the fiscal officer.
And I will second that.
Lynch?
Yes?
Abraham?
Yes.
Uri?
Yes.
And the number, Chris?
That's 8-7. And then you have the credit card statement.
And I'm also going to make a motion that the credit card account transaction detail has been reviewed per policy and the card statement is accepted as presented, subject to investigation.
Second.
Lynch?
Yes?
Uri?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Is there anything else there, Chris?
That is all I have, sir.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. If you have something to bring before the trustees, please raise your hand. Ryan, we're going to go with you first. And if you state your name and where you live in the township and what the issue is.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Nida. I live on Old Middle Ridge, 45345. Familiar with the dead end right off of Eddystone. I'm coming forth because we've had a lot of complaints with fellow neighbors as well as on my street with the parking. You know, all we know, it's become a nuisance. Especially on my street, it's been a problem because it is a county road. And we found out this summer we've had neighbors parking on both sides of the street. And when the fire department came down to paint, they needed at least 13 feet between cars in order to move the truck down. We had 10 and a half. And that prompted the road engineer to put non-parking on the south side of the road. Since then, we still had a neighbor who does car repair that does park cars in the middle of the road. And I say middle. We had one dropped off Saturday night where the tail end sat right in the middle of the double lane for 2.5 days before it was attended to. We've had neighbors send us pictures on Deer Run as well as Hidden Glen where cars are both sides of the street near a fire hydrant. And I'm just trying to figure out how we do this as a community to where we find a resolution where we don't have loss of property and loss of life, that we can find some value in the parking on the streets, whether it's canceled overnight on one side, or how do we do that?
Okay, well, it's right now, it's just the no parking on the south side. Obviously, it's a public street. We might be able to do some more restriction, but that's going to cause pushback from the other side when people have visitors come over, since there's not enough room in their driveway, Ryan. But the enforcement for traffic enforcement is the sheriff's department. And so it's, I realize they're stretched thin, but they will, obviously they're up in our township quite a bit. You see the substation right here. I'm sure in the time we'll be sitting here, you're going to see a deputy pull in. I know they were here earlier. Our fire prevention officer isn't here today. He tends to come at the first meeting of the month. But Chris Neidhart is definitely going to be supportive of that. He obviously isn't the enforcement arm because they work with their own software to make sure there's enough road width in turnaround space to get the larger equipment through there. But the best I can offer at this point is to contact the sheriff immediately and tell your neighbors when somebody's actually leaving a vehicle there. And I'm not talking about temporary, Amazon driver comes down or the lawn care service, but we know which neighbor you're talking about. I mean, I think everybody here knows and has been down there. We know we've had a major fire down there towards the end also in the past. I'm not sure what the no parking sign is right now, than just no parking at any time, just on the one side.
Correct.
And we've gone through the same thing in the Hidden Valley subdivision. We only had it on one side in the area because it was the same thing. It's not like they were all over, but they park on both sides, and those are 28-foot wide streets, but you end up with your large vehicles snaking through, including our snow plows when they've got to plow through. So in that case, even before the sheriff, our road crew occasion will put the nice letter on the windshield for the offenders, and generally that takes care of it, like, hey, you need to keep your vehicle just on the one side of the road so that we can get through. Otherwise, your road's not going to be maintained, and that creates unsafe conditions for all sorts of people. But the best I can offer, unless my colleagues have a different approach at this point in time, is when it occurs, I call the sheriff immediately and see that they respond. And, after it starts costing somebody a little bit of money or a car gets towed, they might be less inclined to do it.
All right. Roger that.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Is that it? Okay. Dave, I see you're here. Did you have something to bring forward tonight?
I do.
Okay. You want to, I know we know you, but just for the record, if you want to state your name and where you live.
My name is David Moore. I bought the Batten House ditch at 45273 Middle Ridge Road. Up on the screen, I can only get a few pictures of what I took the other day. I have like 25 or 27 pictures. This picture in particular is the property that goes down behind all the homes that are on Middle Ridge, east of it. As you can see, it's all nice and green, All the cattails are gone, it's all cleaned up. I've spent a lot of time back there this year getting all of that done, taken care of. And that's what it's supposed to look like. If we go to the next picture, that is the beginning of the French Creek drain that drains the water off of that property into the creek. That is the drain into the creek. You can see there's limbs, debris, there's a algae coating along the entire creek. Then the next picture will show that is actually a tree that's been damaged by a beaver that was back there. Tried to cut that whole damn thing down. So I couldn't send the rest of them for some reason. I don't know why, but I have them on my phone. There are multiple. We're talking in excess of 40 to 50 trees are laying across that ditch. That's taken from the east side of my property. I'm going backwards. I'm going west down the property. There are multiple trees down. I was back there today cleaning up some more of that mess. I know you told me not to, but you know, I'm not the one to just stand here and look at it all the time. But at the beaver dam, or just beyond the dam, is where it is completely dry. There's no water there at all. It is all plugged up. So if that rain comes and we get a couple, 3 inches, all of that water starts moving north eventually. Okay, it will go through Etheridge's property, through the trees, the woods, the debris. With the storm they had a few weeks back, toppled some more limbs and trees in the wooded area part of it. But I know I contacted Don, like you said, and at the end of his email was kind of concerning for me because he said it's a civil matter between neighbors, which is pretty much what you told me here. Okay? So if we can't do anything, why can't I get the number for his attorney and say, hey, look, here's the pictures. All of this water is going to just keep transitioning onto the property. Okay? So if we can go back to the first picture here with the property headed east. Okay, yeah, that one right there. Okay, there's been times.
If you can take the microphone with you, Dave, because that way it'll, for the recording, people that look at this later can hear it.
So there has been times that the water has gone to the base of that fence. Okay? And it will go 90% to 95% all the way back here. Okay? So all of this will turn into a lake. This doesn't work if the creek is full. When the creek's full, then it starts flooding here. So I know that all of this was put in for water retention. Okay? But it's not a retention pond. That's what it turns into. Then it gets to the point where I can't trim it, I can't mow it, I can't do anything with it until, it completely dries out. And in order for that to happen, you have to have these multiple 90-degree days. So, I mean, it's not only, I don't care too much about my property that's actually on the ditch. But it's the 11 homeowners that are behind me that, they have to look at it as well. Eventually, it'll go down.
Yeah,
But-
and Dave, just since we actually have Commissioner Riddell here, who actually sits on the Lorraine County Stormwater District Board, and they make the decisions, so that he's aware of this. You provided us with video and photos before that actually shows it's flooded, and it doesn't just flood your property, it floods over Overland and Stang Road. And the Board of Trustees have applied for grant funding through the Stormwater District to clear this area. The commissioners have approved that. It's actually was approved probably 2 years ago. The issue is getting the easements from several property owners across there to clean it. I'm not sure if the Beaver Dam requires one of those property owners to sign off. Some of the other debris that's in there, they may already have the easement. So I think that would be the situation if the Stormwater District can come in and at least pull up that particular debris, and you've already offered people to come across your property without a problem. And just to clear it up, when I did tell you, because I know you spent a lot of money yourself on this, reason I said, don't do this, I was trying to tell you, you don't have to be paying the expense, it eventually will be done. But I just can't tell you the timing because we're waiting on these additional property owners to sign off on the easements. One of them that no longer lives in the area but owns the property there. They do have a lot of family relations here.
Right.
And it sounds like they're willing, but it's just a matter of getting that signed. So I don't know if once Commissioner Riddell sees this, he might be able to tickle Donna Mancack, who's the director of the Stormwater District, to maybe elevate this with a little higher priority than it is right now. But him telling you it's a civil matter, that is legit, because if you got an issue with another property owner that's got, it's causing it to back up, that's where you can do something specific with that property owner. I'm not suggesting you do that, because as I said, this will eventually get done. It's just we need those easements. If for some reason those easements don't come through, it will delay things. That's going to be the quickest route, but there is a ditch petition process. Again, we'd have to go through the County Board of Commissioners that can actually force entry onto that property, but you prefer to get cooperation first versus, coming down with the heavy hammer of government on someone's property rights. So that's really where we stand. I'm glad you showed up because you've been here at multiple meetings, and we can just keep telling you we're hearing you, but I'm sure you're hearing a lot of just lip service up here and nothing's happening.
I'm hearing it from my back, so.
Yeah, it's,
I tried to clean up what I could. I cut up a bunch of it today. It'd be nice if I get a dump truck in there just to haul the wood out.
And that's
I'm gonna burn
something,
it on site, so I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
that's something Commissioner Moore going back and talking with Director Romanchak, they may be able to do something quicker, because we have been told in the past that log jams, and this is part of that, could be done with a phone call. It's just, again, they can only reach what would be from your property. They can't, the adjoining property, if they don't have an easement agreement yet, they won't be able to go on there without permission of the property owner. I don't recall, I remember sending with the grant application all the parcel numbers and the property owners and contact information if I had it. I just don't, my memory's not helping me here if there was one of the properties between yours, and you mentioned the Estrude property. I thought the Bourne property was adjoining yours first, and he's
Well, the Bourne
already...
property does adjoin mine, but he does not adjoin that, he doesn't abut to that Batten House ditch.
So it is then the Estrude property is the next one over?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then they can only reach what they could get from your property at this point in time.
I know another thing you'd mentioned too about First Energy
Mhm.
wanting more information. Okay?
Yeah, I don't know, and that's where I told you in your communication with Don Romanchek, I don't know if he's gotten back with you yet.
I haven't heard anything from him.
Okay,
Supposed to
so,
call me Monday and he didn't.
okay, well, you might want to remind him of that, but First Energy, as I told you, might have signed easement already. They did request, when the easement request was sent to them, they requested more information. As I said, Don may have already sent that to First Energy or had one of the people in the district send it to them, but they're generally going to sign it. We've had to deal with them in other areas on this ditch. They eventually come through. It's just, you work through departments and it takes a while. As you've heard in the minutes, David's been working on trying to get some street lights repaired with First Energy, and it just seems always much longer than what we would expect it takes to correct these situations. But they eventually do come through. They're not ones to block us or just drive a stake in and say no. It's just they always keep asking for a little bit more information before they finally sign off.
Well, I
to
know
allow us
the
through.
old train bridge that's up, that crosses that Batten House ditch right there. They fly that helicopter over there and they just saw them limbs off wherever they go, and wherever they fall, they fall. Right on the other side of the bridge, on the south side of the bridge, there's limbs laying everywhere back there. Some of them are in the ditch and some of them are laying next to the ditch.
And they'll eventually be in there when the ditch
So,
floods
yeah,
over.
and that's the other thing. South of me, south of the Batten House ditch, there's so many trees, so much crap down like back in there. Eventually, it's going to rain, and you're going to have mudslide, and then you're going to have all that stuff right back up in there. So we need to clean that out.
Well, when they get the easements, there are 2 grants that we've been approved for in place right now. And it will, one portion will run right from where the ditch crosses Middle Ridge, heading to the north,
Right.
all the way back to the railroad you're talking about, which is the Lorraine, West Virginia railroad that's owned by the Lakeshore Railway Association. So that grant's been approved. Then the other grant, which takes the Batten House ditch further, going across Stang Road. So once we get everything done and they have, we'll bid it out, the township will, once the district gets those easements, we will have that ditch hopefully clean from the east branch of Beaver Creek going all the way to the south of Stang Road. But again, it's just, we bite a little piece at a time because the township has to commit funds to this. We can't fund all this at once.
Oh, I
The
get
township
that.
didn't even apply for a stormwater community grant this year.
Right.
Our logic for not applying is we've got 2 grants already hanging out there. I know the way the county works, the county engineer is going to say, hey, if we bring this all together and bid it at once, we can get a more competitive bid, and let's go. And that all sounds good and we'll save money, but guess what? The township has to come up with a match. Well, if we got a third part of this, and now we've got 3 grants, we can't pay all that in 1 year. So we've got to parcel it off a piece at a time here. So that's why we didn't even apply for a grant this year. We have ditch maintenance that needs to be done, but financially, we wouldn't have been able to pay for a third project with our contribution.
Right, okay.
Okay?
And the only other part that concerns me is with the creek being stagnant in the way it is and the algae growth and, or just whatever's in there is mosquitoes.
Yeah. Well, we
It's pretty bad
appreciate
back
it.
there in the evening, so I don't go back there during the evening.
I don't want to discourage you from coming and airing your grievances, but I can let you, I assure you, we've heard you and things are in process. It's just, if, I don't know, the county's got multiple projects, if there's a way that Commissioner Riddell, when he gets there, might be able to move this up the list. Okay? Did you have anything else?
I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff?
We've got just north of $4 million in projects out of $6.5 million that we've appropriated money for that are tied up in court because people are protesting the easements. And unfortunately, one person, if they're in the right place, can stop the whole parade. And so we have to go through the court of common pleas, and we just won a case and thought we were going to take a 3-year-old project and finally put it out to bid, and the same guy that lost the lawsuit appealed it. So that's our biggest problem. If we're collecting easements for, you say this is the Batten House ditch?
Right.
If we're collecting easements, that may be part of moving you up the list, because if you can get, we've got the money and we've got it approved. If we can get the easements, we can go out to bid and get it done. And while these other people are in court, we'll take any other project that we can get funded. We have to spend this money in the next 2 years. We have to do it, or it has to go back to Washington.
That's not good.
No, but we're stymied, as I said, out of $6.5 million that we appropriated, just north of $4 million is tied up in a half a dozen different, court cases, waiting for the court to rule that we can, in fact, go on the property to solve the problem for the public good. But there's a lot of owners out there that are just anti-government for one reason or another, and they just don't want the easement. They don't want to grant a permanent easement to clean the ditch. And unfortunately, the whole process requires us to take an easement so that we can go back and maintain it after we clean it. If we could get it, and it's in the law, if we could take that ditch and clean it and have the easement expire when we're done, we probably wouldn't end up with all the legal problems we have. But when we take that easement, we're required to then maintain that ditch.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, Dave, hopefully it gets moved up. I don't want you to give you the impression that these property owners won't sign, because I know they all have an attorney. And the attorneys, well, they do, and it hasn't been that they've been against it. It's just when you start going back and forth between attorneys, between the county prosecutor's office, the private property owner's attorney, and then the stormwater district, it just keeps adding to the time delay here. So
We're actually looking at taking part of that process to soil and water, and it sounds bad to be a government person, but we're so tired of dealing with this thing through the stormwater rules and regulations. We're actually looking to try and divert some of this work to soil and water, because they don't have half the rules, and they think they can get this stuff done without all this hassle.
well, lots of luck, but thank you. Is that, you all set then? You have
I'm done.
nothing else? Okay.
I'm done.
All right, thanks, Dave.
What's your name again?
Dave Moore?
You should be able to remember that one.
You don't look like the Dave Moore I know. I wonder, you write some articles to the newsletter, to the newspaper?
No, I don't.
Oh,
That's another Dave Moore.
that's another Dave Moore.
Right, I
Okay.
think he's in Elyria.
That's why I don't have to worry about somebody Googling me and finding me.
There you go.
Okay, well, we're going to move on, since we do have an honored guest here in Commissioner Riddell, and I don't recall, David and Denny, maybe you know, if we've ever had a commissioner come here to ask about how they can help the township and to share county projects that might impact us. Has that ever happened before?
Well, I don't remember.
It's been a long time if it has.
Okay.
I won't say never, but it's been a long time.
You guys have been here much longer than me, so that's why I asked you. But I don't know if you want us to share with you what our concerns are, or if you want to go first.
Well, feel free to start. And we got connected because of work you folks are doing on, you're on my radar screen because of the involvement we had to do jointly with Sandstone Village. And we saw that some of the processes that we had at the county were lacking. And so we're trying to change those to take away those unnecessary roadblocks to getting, once you've approved a project, we don't want to be the roadblock to getting it done.
Okay.
I'd like to add, we're not getting good information from the county on these TIFs. We need a start date and a timeline on them, and we're not getting them. We keep getting notices to go to these Turk meetings, and they can't give us, whether or not it started or not. These are like 10-year, 20-year TIFs, and they can't tell whether or not they
But the conversations I've been involved with the TIF, which aren't many, to date, but I thought there's an agreement, and I would think that's all outlined in the agreement, isn't it?
Oh, not as far as, it usually does say when it starts, and generally the start date is based on a certain level of development.
Okay.
Okay, and that's so that when the TIF begins, you actually have enough increase in property value to have some revenue over the time frame of the TIF. Let's say that it were a 10-year TIF, and if you put a hard, fast date and said, okay, we're going to start on September 1st, but no construction begins until a year later, you just lost a year on your TIF. So typically they'll say, let's pick a number that it'll begin after there's a $20 million in investment. And that way, if you got a 10-year TIF, you're actually over those 10 years getting enough funding to pay back the bonds that might have been used to extend infrastructure to the development. So that's the way they define it. So it's not a hard, fast date. It's based on a certain level of development.
Is there a particular
we
project,
couldn't get
Mr.
a
Uhrig?
start value. We couldn't get, how much has been, how much of an increase has been made, how much of the taxes that are being collected are going to the TIF. We couldn't get those figures. And it's like 2 years in a row, particularly with Hampshire Farms. Just need to know when it started, what the starting value was, what the increase is for each year, how much tax is coming in on it that's going to the TIF. So we can track it and have an idea when it's going to finish.
Yeah, and we'll be covering that particular development that David's referring to, and it'll be easier for me to call you Jeff, that's shorter than Commissioner Riddell.
Yes,
Don't
that's
mind.
fine.
Okay, but,
It's worked for 50 years, Neil.
okay. Well, Hampshire Farms, and we'll cover that. This may be because the development sold out much faster probably than government can react, because I was with David when we went to the Turk meetings, and what he's saying is, yeah, they didn't have that information. We were surprised because we live here. We're like, holy smokes, there's homes already going up, and you can't tell us you've collected any money and you haven't started it. It's like, but there are homes there. People are living there.
We were promised they'd get back to us, and that was in March, and now we're here in August, and we still don't have any information on that.
Okay.
And right now, it's Hampshire Farms, but if I was to conjecture, you've got Sandstone Village has a TIF behind that.
Right.
And there's a potential third with the Shenagoat development.
Right.
So we need to get the process for the TIF right.
Yep. Well, and we'll cover those then. If we can go through here, we're going to go through what you've asked about, our goals, concerns, comments, and collaboration opportunities. That was the email that was sent to us, so that's what we want to cover. If you can go to the next slide, Georgianne. Okay. The main thing is, and this is nothing special, this is all out of our comprehensive plan, but the trustees have worked to try and make sure that as this growth occurs, it doesn't overwhelm us, but also that the processes in place aren't to the point where they stifle all growth and development. So we want to have a managed, orderly growth here. We also, any type of impediments that are there, difficulties, that they're eliminated. You've talked with some of the bureaucracy of getting things through. We can approve something through the township, but then as it goes through the county, things might change, or it might seem to take an inordinate amount of time. Obviously, one of the biggest stumbling blocks we have when these come before us is the availability of sanitary sewers. Want to move on to the next slide? I'm not going to go through these particular goals. It'll actually become self-evident as we go through the presentation, but these are the goals that we actually have in writing in our comprehensive plan. So you will actually have that list, but you'll see as we step through where the township works with these goals, both our zoning commission, our Board of Zoning Appeals, and the township trustees. Want to move on then, Georgianne? Okay, Hampshire Farms was the first one that David had brought up. This is on the east side of Oberlin Road, just north of Middle Ridge. This is actually complete. The first home would have been sold in very late 2022, but the last home, I believe it was January of this year. So really, it's about a 13-month period. This was 51 single-family homes. This is a conservation development, which is one of the township added conservation development to their zoning to meet with these goals in terms of putting some flexible zoning opportunities here. This is actually, these 51 homes sit on a little over 25 acres, but of that 25 acres, you can see there's 15 acres of common open space around here. As Georgianne's showing with the pointer, you can see a large of that conserved areas to the south of development. What that did is provide a large buffer to the existing homeowners that live on K Drive, meets directly with the goals that are listed in our comprehensive plan. As she moves to the northeast, you can see that is all conserved area on the east side. By the way, sitting on the east there is roughly a 1 million gallon, it's less than a 1 million gallon, but an underground detention basin to protect the combination sanitary sewers in the city of Lorraine. There's also, as you go to the north side of the development, moving to the west, more conserved area, and you get back up to Oberlin Road, a large conserved area for the property owner that fronts Oberlin Road. These lots tend to be just 50-foot by 50-foot frontage, 120 feet deep. There was, on the township burden for the township, we got 1,250 linear feet, 28-foot wide roadway we have to maintain, plus the storm sewers that are in there. All these lots, the final lots, as I indicated, were sold in January of 2024. So it started late 2022, finished out the build out and sale in 2024. The average sale price of the homes was $350,000. The property value increased just about $17.9 million. This is all in the Amherst Exempted Village School District. Now, David mentions the TIF here. This was way before your time, even though the current Board of Commissioners, 2 of them were there as the TIF went through. It was even decided prior to them. From the township's point of view, it was an unnecessary TIF. It was a 10-year, 75% TIF, so the school board had no say in it, township had no say in it. Nobody came to us to say this is what they're going to do, which, always makes a community happy when somebody doesn't even let you know about it. The thought process, and I spoke with the county administrator at that time when we found out about it, and it has some validity. It was 2 things. His first thing was, well, this opens up the other area for development by bringing sewers on Oberlin Road there. And so that forced the developer to change things. He was just going to go to the east and tie in where that detention basin is, versus picking up the property along Oberlin Road. To meet the conditions set by the county meant deeper sewers coming all the way up to Oberlin Road and running it along the homes there, which then conscripted them in, forced them into the sanitary sewer. Well, the developable property they're talking about didn't make sense because it's this, what we call the Oberlin Quarry. There is an old quarry there. Different developers have looked at that property in the past, and it presents some serious difficulties to make it financially feasible to develop that particular property. So as far as we were concerned, it was unnecessary and just placed a burden on our residents there for no reason whatsoever and took money away from the local community, albeit additional money. So it didn't take our existing money, but the additional money, instead of coming to provide services that this development's going to put added burden on, it was diverted for these sanitary sewers. Well, the second reason given, which does have some validity, more validity than additional development, was that it is potential between the state and environmental compliance. If these neighbors that were forced in now were forced to comply in the future, yes, it could have cost them a lot more money, because then they would have had to pay 100% of the cost versus getting that plan in now. So I can't argue that decision may prove in the future to have been the correct decision, but now we'll never know because they are connected. An offshoot, just so you're aware, I did apply for ARPA money, which can help pay for sewers, to help offset this cost for these residents. It never even made it onto the commissioner's agenda. I was following the rules that the county had set in place. Unfortunately, I even met with the president of the board at the time, could not convince him to put it on the agenda. I always recall the one question that set me back. He said, well, do you have any low to moderate income people living there? I thought, what the heck does that have to do with anything? When I see this money being doled out, the way I put it, I saw it go for fish, I saw it go for dogs and cats, I saw it go for bees, I saw it go for advertising signs. But when it comes down to the basic, none of those are listed specifically in the ARPA funds. One thing that's very specific listed in there, sewers and water. We got zero. Our residents got zero. So they had to pay the contractor to connect. Granted, they didn't get those add-on fees that sometimes you get in connecting to sewer, but it was a cost burden. Who knows if in the future the EPA environmental standards might not have been tightened up. They could have been. So it's hard to say, was this a good decision or not? Offhand, though, I'd say this one's unnecessary, but it's minor, it's passed, it's done. If we can move on then, Georgianne.
That's Hampshire Farms, that's off of Oberlin Road?
It's on Oberlin Road, north of Middle Ridge on the east side.
East side, okay.
Yeah, it's all done, and to David's point, hopefully the county is now collecting because every home sold, people are living in it. You know, if they wait too long, people are going to be reselling those homes as, you know, people move out or move up. But yeah, it's all sold and finished.
Well, don't forget, we're paying real estate taxes a year in arrears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it may just be timing, and I know the county's had difficulty, like many people have, in personnel, and a lot of changeover in the department that deals with this too. Okay, the next one, you've mentioned the sandstone development. This development is between Oberlin Road, State Route 58, just south of the Ohio Turnpike. Its status, this is currently in process, under construction. This is over 264 total acres. 40 acres will be commercial along State Route 58. 224 acres is residential. This development will have 194 single-family homes constructed by Ryan Homes, 263 single-family homes that will be constructed by Cahovinian. Then there are going to be 3 single-family, 1-acre lot homes with 100-foot frontage on Oberlin Road. 2 of those, all 3 lots on Oberlin Road are sold. 2 homes are up with the families living in there. The other one just has to finish getting his grass in. The third one, they occasionally come in and cut the field, but I don't know what their status is as far as construction, but all 3 of those lots have sold already. There's also going to be within the development 210 age-targeted rentals, which is what was referred to, you heard the early discussion on the Redwood development. Redwood, I know, has already poured all the concrete streets. The concrete trucks are back there every day putting in the sidewalk, which will be immediately adjacent to the street. Within this area, most of these lots are going to be 50 to 70 foot frontage with 110 to 120 foot on the typical lot. That variability is part of the settlement agreement. To keep with our comprehensive plan, we wanted for those large lots along State Route 115 and part of Oberlin Road, that those are where the larger lots are, so that they kind of see what they had before. Plus there's a 50-foot buffer, minimum 50-foot buffer all around that particular section. From the township standpoint, what does this mean to us in terms of additional expense? There's going to be just about 4 miles of concrete roadway that will become the township's responsibility, and that's 28-foot wide streets, plus the associated storm sewers. There's going to be a little over a mile of asphalt pavement with concrete curb and gutter that'll be 28 feet wide. That's known as Sandstone Parkway. That won't have any curb cuts on it, which improves the safety. The only cuts will be the roadways coming in. And that's probably going to be the first new county road in a generation. I don't know how long it's been, Jeff, but that will become a county road There's been discussion, preliminary discussion with the county engineer about a cooperative maintenance agreement between the township and the county engineer. In our case, the county engineer might be responsible for the storm sewer on that section, repavement, and pothole fixing. But the township actually may take on the plowing and salting, assuming that the county engineers gives us on a per mile salt. And the logic there is our guys have to come through and do the subdivision anyway. So as long as we're going through, it doesn't take a whole lot more to drop the plow and put the salt down. And since we're already there and we'll tend to get there before the county, especially in a major storm event, that's going to improve the safety, reduce motor vehicle accidents and issues there. And the main thing is the safety and the impact on people. But for us, it saves money too. Because every time that ambulance and fire go out there, it costs us money.
Make sure you stick to your guns on the maintenance by the engineer, because that was originally proposed as a concrete spine road by Oster, and it was at the engineer's demand that it was switched to asphalt, which is higher maintenance.
Yeah, and it may be higher maintenance, but it's, and I'm aware of that, and we've had discussions with the county engineer, so we still have to work out those details, but it's something that we've had those discussions, and I think we can get this worked out pretty well. That roadway, in addition for the construction for safety, and this is also part of the settlement agreement, you can see there's curvatures put in. There are also 4, I won't say they're roundabouts. One of them's a roundabout. We started in the settlement agreement with roundabouts, but in the give and take, the developer was losing too many homes, lots, sellable lots, because of the size of the roundabouts at the intersections. So we ended up with these roundouts that are in there, and the main 3 roundouts on the main drag is just in the curvature to keep traffic calm, so you can't use this as a raceway, because that's what this would have been. It would have been a raceway from Overland Road to 58. So this puts it down. It also that will be planted in the center so that you don't even have the site plan. You've got to go slow to get around it. So I know people keep asking, why are those obstructions there? It's there for a reason. They're upset because it slows them down. Well, good, it's serving its purpose. There's also going to be, let's see, there will be 5,000, so just under a mile of concrete pavement with a 4-foot sidewalk in Redwood. The nice thing about that in the settlement agreement, that could have been either single-family homes or rental. The original was the developer wanted to put 4-story all rental, and the township was a no to that. So what was agreed to was if it's single family, the township will take care of the roads. If it's rental units, which isn't something we strive for here, but if it is, then there'll be private roads. Well, these are all private roads. So the nice thing is there is going to be additional tax revenue once the TIF's, and even when the TIF's on, the way the final TIF was worked out. But the street maintenance is all going to be the homeowners association there for the Redwood portion of this development. There are already now, Kehavinian has 3 complete model homes that are open. People are going back there every day to go through those model homes. Ryan's model home is complete and just about ready to open. I'm sure they may be open. If not this weekend, I expect we'll have next weekend, they'll be making an announcement. Multiple lots have already been sold. So, and there's 6 basements, I believe, now poured, and 1 structure already started over the 7th. So they're moving, and I expect if the economy stays good, similar to our experience in Hampshire Farms, these things won't last long. Again, just a little over a year, that thing was built out and sold. We expect the home price to be $325,000 to $400,000 in that range. That would mean that just under $233 million increase in total property value in this area, $32 million being commercial, $200 million being residential. This whole development is in the Amherst Exempted Village School District. There was a TIF. This was a TIF that was done the right way. It included both the schools, the township, and the county were all involved in the discussion. And it really helped even from the township standpoint, since if we get into any disagreement from a legal standpoint, we've got to go out and hire an attorney. We lose the use of the county prosecutor because the county commissioners trump us. But fortunately, in working with the schools, they had their legal advisor. They also went out and got a financial consultant to work this out. And I think in working jointly with the schools, we eventually got a better TIF put in place here that's going to benefit everybody that's going to participate in this. In addition, as part of the settlement agreement, that 40-acre commercial area, that is all going to be part of a joint economic development district. And what meets a different goal within the township's comprehensive plan is there is property to be set aside along 58 for a trailhead. And you can see right now the developer showed in the area that Georgianne's pointing out, but there is some flexibility in that. And as part of that spline road was the township's request to also have the 8-foot multi-purpose trail along there so that it wasn't just grass with the roadway. And it wasn't that we want it just for this development, though they will use it. We recognize the property to the east side of Oberlin Road, a lot of large developable property that has all the utilities available for it now. But as we move to the west side of 58 in our comprehensive plan, we've set that up for a transportation-oriented district with the hopes of having a multi-purpose trail along the Lorraine-West Virginia Railroad. And if there is any change with the Lakeshore Railway Association that owns that, if there were assurance they weren't coming further to the north, we would like to use the rail bed and have this part of Lorraine County Metro Parks. But if they are able to come this far north, at least have something adjoining it, realize to do that, we need to know now. Because this area is going to develop long before any train traffic is coming up from Wellington.
Right, and my understanding is that the Railway Association does have an agreement with the Turnpike Commission on either overpass or underpass to the Turnpike, because the Turnpike, when they redid that, it cut, to get the
interchange.
The interchange, it cut off the roadbed. And so there was an accommodation made, but I understand all the expenses on the Railway Association.
Yeah, and that's why,
And
again,
it's pretty sizable.
yeah, we wouldn't want to restrict them, but we also want to live in reality. If it turns out they can have it done, it may be a situation of, two different sections for, versus going from Black River Landing all the way down to the fairgrounds. Either they could come up north and stop at the township, between the township and Wellington. They could run a second line that goes from the township to Black River Landing. But we know that going to the Black River Landing, you start cutting through the townships and then both Sheffield, Elyria, and then getting up into the city of Lorraine. That development that's already around there, since that wasn't set aside now, that's going to be difficult short of just the rail bed. But we have the opportunity now of putting in place to keep that land conserved. And then as you move down to the south, you get some large open rural areas also. But we'll get to that because that's one separate slide that's in here.
Has the westerly portion of the Sandstone Parkway been bid out yet, do you recall?
I think it's out for bid now.
Yeah, you can move
It's out for
on
bid now?
Georgianne.
Okay, because I wondered when that was going to start.
My guess is you'll see underground over the winter and pavement in May.
For that section?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next possible development. This is Stratton Corners. This is the developer that's approached the township for development on the east side of Oberlin, south of State Route 113. The township already approved a zoning amendment from residential agricultural, which is our large lot, minimum 1 acre, 125 front footage, to an R1, which is half-acre lots with a conservation development. When the township first did this, this developer had this roughly 45 acres on the north end and another 95 acres to the south. He thought that he could get, the township approved a 65-home development, but he had only a single access to Overland Road. We had told him county subdivision regulations would allow a maximum of 50. He was aware of multiple subdivisions in Lorraine County that exceeded that, thought he could get by with 65. So the township did approve that. It was conditioned that also the wooded area be preserved between the 95-acre and the 45-acre area with the stipulation of pedestrian trails through that wooded area so that we not only have open space and conservation of woods, but they're usable by people. The developer, as we went back and forth on number of units, said 65 units was his price point that he wasn't going to go any lower on. So the township did approve that. When the developer went to the county, they found out exactly what we had told them. 50 homes is the max without a second mode of ingress and egress. Because of that, the developer was aware of other options, which he had discussed with the township on the initial proposal. He was able to get those options in place. It's not a done deal yet, but the change was he's no longer has an interest in that 95 acres of the south, which also has all utilities. So that'll eventually go. But he doesn't have an interest, but he came back with this more intensive development where the township approved 65 homes. He's come back with the 73 home development. And he encroached on the woods, which the township says, according to our conservation development, as much as possible, we want to conserve those woods. And he'd be putting one home on a large lot that fronts Telegraph Road. In an emergency access, he was buying a lot that a homeowner intended to put a home on, but at this time there will be an exchange where instead of being there, the homeowner will be moving into this new subdivision, and that would just be an emergency entrance going in there. The nice thing is the township, there's more than 100-year oak trees along the south of the main entryway, and the property owner that lives there, that was real important to them, and we did have quite a few of the property owners in this area come forward to review this at both meetings and all the public hearings. So he's agreed to do the best he can to keep all those. We told him we're not going to wiggle on the encroachment in the wooded area, so he's got to move that to the north. But he does have other options. We had shown him how he can easily reduce it to 69 homes, even with his current design, without a problem. And though that has not gone through the zoning commission officially, it was just an informal preliminary site plan review. I did detect several zoning commission members were supportive, some others had some questions, so that's still open. But as I said, if he adjusts this plan and still meeting all of the necessary requirements, he can probably get up to 75 homes there. But again, that's something that they still have to bring before the township. So we still want the 25 acres of woods conserved. There will be, the homes generally will be a 65-foot frontage by 130-foot depth. There will be about 3,100 feet by 28 feet wide of additional concrete pavement, storm sewers that will be the township's responsibility. Average sale price, I'm sure the developer will say it's higher, but we're going to use the $400,000 figure. These will be total property value increase, $2.5 to $3 million. This is also all in Amherst exempted village school district. There shouldn't be any need for any TIF here, and I'm hoping you don't have one, but if you do, I certainly hope you will talk with the township and the schools before anybody goes forward. This is Dave Kohler. Dave's been at the county meetings also, and he's presented this new preliminary plan. And I think he went to the county after he was here at the township. So when he did that, he was aware of the township's position. Okay, we're going to move on here. Okay, the Preserve at Middle Ridge. This is on the south side of Middle Ridge, east of State Route 58. I think you had mentioned this earlier. This is the Pat Shenago proposal. The zoning commission and the township have already approved the zoning amendment. The previous zoning, this was a mixture of residential, agricultural, general business, and light industrial. It's been changed to be a mixed-use 3 overlay district, which gives the developer considerably more flexibility, but it also allows the township to put on some conditions in there. This is just under 85 acres. 9 acres will be commercial, 31 and a half acres residential, just under 27 acres would be conserved space, which would have, walking trails and whatnot for the eventual residents around the roughly 7-acre pond there. That pond was a borrow pit to construct the turnpike interchange. So we're going to take what was a negative and turn it into a positive. And then there will be 17 acres reserved for future development. No commitment on that. The developer wants to see how his development goes before they do any development there. And obviously there's a cost to bridge over the tributary going into the east branch of Beaver Creek. The proposal right now is 35 multifamily buildings with 2 to 5 living units per building, which will bring a total of 136 2-bedroom rental units. These will be rental units. There's no specific lot size, which is allowed under the mixed-use 3 district, so they're all clustered on one privately owned parcel. It'll be just under a mile of roadway. This will also be 28 feet wide, asphalt pavement with concrete curb and gutter. Realize that's at the owner's option because these will also be all private streets. So the streets and the storm sewer burden and that expense will be on the future residents moving in there that they'll pay through their rental cost. The estimate on this is a $27 million total property value increase, $7 million being commercial, $20 million being residential. We don't have a value on that 17 acres that's in reserve because we have no idea what will be going in there. This is also all in the Amherst Exempted Village School District. We're really hoping here, we've already been in discussions with the county about it in the school district, about a TIF on Middle Ridge Road just for a left-hand turn lane for 2 reasons: to maintain safety and keep traffic moving. We've had the experience in the township, and we went through a traffic study with the county engineer on other intersections along Middle Ridge. Very costly. We had, because of severe motor vehicle accidents and deaths, we actually now have had 2 additional left-hand turn lanes put in. We had signalage added. We've had 2 road realignments. We've changed time in the signals. But realize you do that after the development, that all comes at the taxpayer expense later. So we want to get this done up front. We've had the discussions first with the county engineer to get their thoughts, and then we've had the discussions with the community development department as far as the options here. And when I say a non-school, non-township, the statute allows these non-school, but we'd really like to see where the township keeps the revenue that we have for the services here for our residents. And it does appear there's enough value in here to justify that, though that might be something that the county hasn't been involved in the past. There's been discussions on the JED with the current property owner and the proposed developer for that commercial area. There hasn't been a commitment on that, but we certainly hope they'll be willing to do that because then there is shared revenue between the adjoining municipality and the township here, since that's the only vehicle the townships have to get that additional tax revenue. And that's also something that's been discussed in our comprehensive plan and through multiple meetings that the township's gone through with their zoning commission as we updated that plan. Again, trying to shift the burden off the residents, which many times they get overburdened with all these tax increase requests. So this particular area, again, it would be a TIF that's agreeable to, but it wouldn't impact, the schools would get all of the revenue coming off of this. And at the end of this, we're going to go through what we anticipate all these developments to mean and burden on the school in terms of new students versus the revenue, increased revenue that they'll get.
What are we tiffing on this one for?
That's what I said, for a left-hand turn lane at Middle Ridge, and if you recall, David,
All right.
when we approved this, it was conditional that the developer set aside the land up there up front, which they've already done. So, I mean, they haven't specified it out, it's not parcel, but you'll see the longer roadway coming off Middle Ridge. They're aware we want a left-hand turn lane there.
And there was recognition, Dave, that this will not only solve what the issue that's the extra traffic brought by the development, but there's already a good body of existing traffic that'll benefit from that left-hand turn lane.
Okay, Georgianne. Okay, the next project, this is on the Golden Acres property with the Get-Go Market and Cafe. This is actually Lorraine County Port Authority owns this property. My understanding, I believe it's October that the agreement is for closing on this. I know people have heard about Giant Eagle selling their Get-Go operation to a Canadian firm. I can assure you we were called, at least I received the call the very next day from their property acquisition manager. This is still a go. That there's going to be a long-term relationship between Giant Eagle and this development. It's just a change where the new company wants to get more in the convenience store business. They've got the fuel dispensing business. They also own Circle K, which was their first entry into the convenience store business, but Giant Eagle will still maintain, they'll provide the produce, provide all the inside snacks, anything that's personal consumable, and your My Perks will still be good. So this is still a go. The Get-Go marketing site plan's already been approved by the township. There's also been a proposal for, though it hasn't come public yet, it's a silent developer, and there's actually 2 developers interested in this for residential development along North Ridge and Dewey Road upon the Get-Go sale. Get-Go is 5.7 acres. The private development's talking about 7 acres being set aside, minimum 7 acres for residential townhomes, and then possibly 10 acres for single-family homes over along Dewey Road. There are sanitary sewers that are available from the city of Amherst for the area along North Ridge. There are no sanitary sewers on Dewey Road, so those will be on-lot systems, probably much larger lots. The Get-Go property value increase is between $2 and $4 million. That may seem like a large range, being 100% differential, but some of that is Get-Go's given us what that total amount is, but I think they're including everything, including their fuel pumps and their tanks and whatnot. So some of that, it's my understanding, has to be backed out, that there won't be property taxes available on that. So we try to take this to the low range, which you'll see later when we go into the estimate of what does it mean in tax dollars. The townhome property value will be between 5 and 7 million, single-family home between 1 and 2 million. So total potential here is 8 to 13 million in total property value increase. Will be our hope is all private streets, but realize this is all premature. Ideally would be no additional streets, and that it would just be overlooking the valley that's in there, that's the current sledding hill, and keeping that all natural. This is also all within the Amherst Exempted Village School District. No expectation for any TIF in this area. And this area is already in a joint economic development district between the township and the city of Amherst. Okay, the next development, this is one that's pretty new, so it's still pretty speculative. This is on just north of Middle Ridge, east of Pile South Amherst Road. The proposal is to rezone from residential agricultural to R1, which is from 1 acre lots to half-acre lots with conservation development. This is just a little under 36 acres. The developer's proposing 10 acres be conserved as open space, and the construction of 91 single-family homes They won't be able to get the 91 single-family homes because ours, without a variance, which I think would be difficult to get because our zoning with conservation development would allow a 72-home construction maximum. The proposal is 60-foot frontage by 110-foot deep lots. As it's presented right now, there'd be 3,000 linear feet by 28-foot wide concrete pavement. So the concrete pavement, storm sewers would all be the township's responsibility. The average sale price about $400,000 per home. Property value increase, assuming it's just the 72 homes, would be between $2.8 and $3 million. This is also within the Amherst Exempted Village School District. We don't see any need for a TIF in this particular area at this time. But there is one difficulty, as soon as the developer indicated they were coming through with a informal preliminary site plan review to get the town, just to feel the township out, I did contact City of Amherst Mayor Costello about the availability of sanitary sewers because this is in the City of Amherst 208 facility planning area. Mayor Costello indicated that at this point in time, because they're trying to reserve capacity for development in the city, is that they're not inclined to be extending sewer service outside the city limits. So without sanitary sewers, there's no way for this development to even occur. And this has gone back and forth because we've had other people with interest in this. And I can tell you this used to be in the city of Lorraine's FPA area. When Copper Creek was constructed just to the north, which was done with the TIF when the sanitary sewer was brought in, more so to address the property owners that were forced into connection, and also take care of the larger than necessary stormwater detention. The county, and this was a smart move, required that the sanitary sewer be constructed deeper than necessary to serve Copper Creek. Bob Parrott was the developer of Copper Creek. I know that didn't make him happy because he's spending extra money to benefit a property that he doesn't own. And he did try to get, but obviously price never worked out in the right way. So he paid the extra money to do that. Previous developer that was interested, the city said they didn't have the capacity. Time went on, things changed, and they did have the capacity. Now we're at a different point, they do not. So again, we understand they want to reserve those sewers, but realize from the county as a whole, and townships in particular that don't have their wastewater treatment facility, it makes it very difficult when these proposals come forward and how this can change. So that's something, and you'll see later, that the county commissioners may be able to help with in the future. And again, I think I mentioned we don't anticipate any TIF on this, but this one's pretty preliminary. Okay, Georgianne. And by the way, that Sanctus Capital, they're out of Westlake. They own the property. Di Benedetto is just a real estate developer guy that's interested in developing it. I don't know their direct relationship as to how that stands, because this is very preliminary. Okay, this next one you've got to be very familiar with. This has been talked about for a long time, is the quarry development that Industrial Realty Group owns. Our contact that we haven't had, there was no need for any more recent contract, is generally Justin Lichter, who is the son of Stuart Lichter, who is the owner and founder of IRG. This has been already rezoned by the township from residential agricultural to planned unit development. Total acreage out here is just under 928 acres. 686 of those acres are in Amherst Township, 158 in the village of South Amherst, and 83 in Brownhelm Township.
How much in Amherst Township?
686.
686.
Yeah, just a hair under that. The development, and this thing keeps changing all over the place, but all we have that's in writing in the public record is 122 quarry front estates, 70 attached single-family units, 54 farm estates, 198 detached single-family units, 80 clubhouse townhomes, 124 marina condominiums, 252 single-family cluster units, 250-unit clubhouse condominium suites. All of that, and the way this thing keeps changing, we can't even put an estimate as to what the property value increase could be. This is all within the Fireland School District. I know that the county has discussed TIFs on this. Matter of fact, the previous development proposal, there was a TIF put on this property. No discussion with the township. As a matter of fact, the first time we found out a TIF was under discussion was when a newspaper reporter contacted me, and that happened to be the same day that the township trustees were meeting for an organizational meeting. But I made a point of running up to the county commissioners meeting to let them know the displeasure that they scheduled a special meeting at the end of the year so that they could pass a TIF, and never once contacted anybody here from the township.
When was that?
That would have been, it was prior to 2007, that would have been when Trans-European Securities was involved in this. And so I don't recall the exact date on that, Jeff, but it was prior to that. The township trustees, all three of us, went to school board meeting because we let the school board know we were disappointed in them also. We invited them to every public meeting we had. We listened to any concerns they had. We included anything, but they obviously were aware of this TIF, and nobody picked up a phone. I had the president of the Board of Commissioners go through how difficult this is because they're moving so fast. And I just reminded them that even at that time, you know, you've got email, you've got texting, you've got cell phones, you can even do a fax if you want to. You had all sorts of ways to contact her, just a real quick call. I don't care what they say, this was deliberate, definitely done under the cloak of night to keep it from us. Not that we would have said no, but things certainly would have been different had we had a seat at the table to discuss it. And I think we could offer valuable input, but to my knowledge, that TIF is sunset, doesn't even have the original developer. The county's tried to work with the school board, and the school board's changed over a bit, but in 2 meetings, they did invite us where there was discussion on the TIF. At that time, it started out like 40 at $1 million per home going in. Then it was up to 90 to get enough to help pay the TIF necessary to bring a sanitary trunk line from the PQM plant down Baumhart. I don't know what's happened because I don't know that ever even became a vote before the school board. The schools were also interested in being able to tap in for their Firelands campus, but I haven't heard anything on this since. But that right now just sits in limbo, so we know eventually something will happen to that property. The IRG pays a considerable amount of property taxes every single year on this property, and they're getting no return right now. IRG did approach the township about putting up a package plant, and I know they approached the county, it was prior to your time. They approached the county commissioners. They also approached the village of South Amherst to get their agreement. Amherst Township did agree. It wasn't a unanimous vote, but we did agree to allow a package plant, to allow this to go forward. The village and the county both turned it down. And we understand the county standpoint is they want sewers for all of the west side of the county. The village obviously wants sanitary sewers because they got a lot of small lots, failing lots, and they can't really grow or do a whole lot of development without sanitary sewers. We understand that. But the people that voted for us are only in Amherst Township. Nobody from the city of Vermillion, Brownhelm Township, or, though we do get the north side of the village votes for trustee and fiscal officer. We had to look at it from our standpoint, and if that went in place, guess what? There's no TIF either necessary. But that didn't happen. So now who knows, there may be other options. I know there's discussion going on. The township's part of Lorraine County Regional Wastewater District. We know there's some discussions with the county, but the executive director of LORCO, Lorraine County Regional Wastewater District, has signed non-disclosure agreements with the county. So he's limited in what type of information he can share with the LORCO board. But I have confidence that he's not going to do anything that will sell Lorco short or sell Amherst Township short.
That's Gene Toy?
That's Gene Toy. So, and Gene, I can tell you, he is a rules follower. His ethics are so strong. He signed a non-disclosure agreement. He's going to abide by that. So it's frustrating for the Lorco board, but he shares what he can share. All we know is, quote, something's in the works. As a matter of fact, when Mayor Coslow told me about the project there for Sanctus Capital and Di Benedetto, that the city can't serve it at this point in time, I said, hey, as you guys are working on this, look at this property too. Does this enter into that discussion? So I know he's got that information. I know he'll carry it forward to the group that's in that particular discussion.
Did I hear you say that the original TIF was 2007 is now sunsetted?
It was prior to 2007,
Okay.
but I believe that's sunset already. Yeah, and I would guess that's probably in the 2005 to 2006 range that was put in place. But the one thing for sure is knowing that and now probably ARPA, maybe it wouldn't have met the time frame. It's frustrating. No money was put aside for these sanitary sewers. But if recognizing that the TIF's going to be one of the things that the county's going to want to use as a financial tool to get sewers here, from the township's perspective, we may support that, but we want to make darn sure that if money that normally would come to our township for township services, to our residents and businesses, that if that ends up benefiting all the surrounding area on the west side of Lorain County, that somehow we get reimbursed. Because it's a matter of fairness, if all of the funding comes from the township, predominantly from Amherst Township, but the benefactors are outside the township, somehow there seems unfairness, so we would like to see that there's a sharing, whether it's a reimbursement in the future, whatever, so that everybody is made whole or everybody had skin in the game. So it's just so you're aware as this gets worked on, because we tend not to be invited to the meetings where these discussions are occurring. Okay, Georgiana, if you want to move on. Okay, this next item we've touched on already. This is where the potential of, if you could get all the way from the fairgrounds in Wellington to the Black River Landing in Lorain, we're talking roughly 25-mile potential of railway and trails. This is already a proposed connection. The township has included this in their updated comprehensive plan. For the settlement agreement I mentioned with the developer of Sandstone, is they're already set aside land for coordination with Lorain County Metro Parks for a trailhead along 58 just south of the Ohio Turnpike. I know in the Shenago development we've talked about the sidewalks along 58 to help interconnect, which he's already agreed to. We know this is going to require a lot of collaboration from people, and the more people you bring to the table, the more difficult it becomes to get agreement, but also hopefully the final result is something that makes everybody satisfied with what they come up with. So we would need cooperation with the Lakeshore Railway Association, Lorain County Metro Parks, Lorain County Commissioners, the townships, villages, and the developers to help make this a reality, because this obviously hits a lot of different communities, so this would be a true county project.
Yeah, if you want to hold that thought, they're scheduling to come in September to make a presentation to the commissioners.
Well, if I know when that happens, I will do everything I can to be at that meeting.
Okay.
They've just gone through crossing, so they've extended their rail line now can go from the fairgrounds 6 miles to the north for limited recreational train runs that they put on. So, and you can see those on their website. They're usually special events. We know that development on the west side of 58 is going to occur prior to Lakeshore Railway getting anything up to Amherst Township. So that's why we put it into our comprehensive plan. We want to make sure as developers come in, we can get something set aside, but to do that, we need this collaboration ahead of time. Otherwise, it's hard, we may pick the wrong side of the rail line. If we knew for certain they weren't coming up, we'd actually like to use the rail bed itself. But we need to know, we can't let this sit because the development will overrun us then. So if we can preserve that and keep to our development showing a transportation-oriented district, that's what we'd like to do. This will definitely be a recreation and tourism draw for Lorain County. I know we don't have a Visitors Bureau actual operation on 58 yet, but that's where the Visitors Bureau used to be. Well, guess what? It's right where this trailhead would be. And this trailhead, there's many areas that you connect. You can connect that are heavily residential. We've got one of our manufactured home parks in the township. You got Jamie's Flea Market being connected. You'll interconnect with Oberlin, you'll interconnect with Wellington, then you also have nice rural areas that people like to ride through. But I can tell you frustration, I've ridden a lot of trails, ones that I like riding in the rural areas, but what gets frustrating is there's no place to stop when I want to sit down and eat, or just sit and visit or listen to some music. I'm just out riding a trail. So the nicer thing is when you have a destination along the way or some place to go. The one over in Peninsula is nice because they do have a place to stop. I can tell you it had a farm market going. They had music playing. They had stuff to eat. Biggest problem my wife and I had, we stopped, we ate, we enjoyed ourselves too long. We thought we were going to pick the train up down in Akron, and we just missed it. So we rode our bikes all the way back in the late evening, which was fine by me. My wife was concerned I was going to be mad. She thought I was the one that wanted to contact the train, and I misread her. I thought she was the one that wanted to contact the train because I said, I didn't want to get on that train anyway. I just wanted to ride our bike. May have been very late when we got back, but we made it, very tired. But again, this would be countywide. I know it's very ambitious, but we really need to know now, because when those developers start coming to us, how do we guide them? What do we say? We're going to use our comprehensive plan and our zoning, but we can't be so specific of exactly where to put this if we got to leave the rail bed open, getting alongside the rail line with the developer's property. What side of the tracks do we put it on? So that's what we need to know now. Okay, this is another one. I think you've seen this before. The trustees have discussed this. We've had discussions with the city of Amherst. This is what we're terming Golden Acres Park. This is north and south of North Ridge Road. Right now, there is the Get-Go Market Cafe. When that sale goes through in construction on that 5 acres fronting 58 there. A lot of this, there's a silent developer that proposes purchasing the 35-acre balance from Lorain County Port Authority for townhome construction upon the Get-Go sale completion. And he'd be willing to donate approximately 20 acres of the ravined area in the sledding hill back to the metro parks. Now that's what the one developer. The second one that's now shown interest, I don't know where his thoughts are. But obviously that ravined area isn't a place where you can construct homes, but we don't want an area that's just set aside that, okay, we've got open space and that's good, it'll work out great for the wildlife. But how do people use it, short of those that really like walking through the rough and don't mind a little poison ivy? When we've reviewed this particular development, the Get-Go Market is probably the initial trigger that started this, but there was also concurrent within the city of Amherst to the north of Dewey Road, which is off the map here, is they've now approved the development for a 174-unit townhome project. They've now got that developers agreed to add sidewalks along North Dewey Road, which they don't have now, since that was a concern for many of the residents, particularly there's a 150 home manufactured home park in Amherst. And that was one of their concerns, is safety. You can only put it on one side because you got single-family homes on the west side of North Dewey, and those property owners were concerned with people encroaching on their front yard, so it's going to be on the east side of North Dewey. Well, when the Marilyn Jenny, who was very influential here in this area, when she had passed, she donated property to the Metro Parks that the Metro Parks owns today. So they already have property there. When we looked at this, if the developer donates another 20 acres for the ravined area south of that, when we started looking at the other property here, unfortunately I don't have my glasses to see the numbers, we found out that not only do you have the property the Port Authority owns, but there was a parcel which I was told by one of your fellow commissioners was probably a mistake. It still shows ownership of the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners. Then there's another parcel down here, roughly 5 acres, that's owned by the city of Amherst. Well, if we can get the Metro Parks to agree to take all this property, but make the property where it's an actual usable park, most likely going to be something with just a trail construction. It would require some bridging here. That can interconnect between the Ridgeline development to the south in the city of Amherst. So we're talking from the Township Road of Ackerman, if you know where First Federal is, heading all the way to the north, interconnecting the Ridgeline development, coming up through the conserved area. We would prefer an undercrossing on North Ridge. I've had some preliminary discussions with county engineer and also Bramhall Engineering, since the city had just recently gone through a resurfacing. They did add a left-hand turn lane there on North Ridge. That was a big concern for those residents if they had this additional townhome coming in, 174 homes, the amount of traffic. So our preference would be if we're an underpass for safety versus having people walk across North Ridge. That obviously would be expensive and still to be determined. But then you would continue to the walkway that the developer of the townhomes is going to put in. And then the Rock Creek Run development to the north, they obviously did not want an interconnection of vehicle traffic coming to there. And that seems to be a situation where you put in these stub streets expecting to interconnect communities, but once a community is fully built out, people are living there, they no longer want anybody else, the outsiders coming in. So Amherst is restricting that. Well, that could be a pedestrian pathway only. That will interconnect all of the commercial area that's on the north side of 58. So if you think about going down there, you've got between the multiple banks, you've got dental units, you've got the new urgent care center, you've got restaurants to eat, you name it, personal care, they're there. So we will connect from Ackerman all the way down with a safe route, and a good portion of 58 does not have sidewalks. This would be your alternate connection there in coming through. But again, this is going to require, I would say the biggest player we would need cooperation from is Lorraine County Metro Parks. And then the long term, and they're real good at the planning here, how can you make this a viable, usable recreational space? And one thing I can tell you, Jeff, is people always tend to put trails in these nice rural settings, and they're nice. But of the trails I ride, one of the ones I see that gets the biggest use is the one in Amherst, the Beaver Creek. And why is that? Because it's it's got development all around it. It's not a residential area. Well, look at this map. Same thing. So that trail will get used. It will also improve a safety purpose. And I think for the proposed development, it's going to help them. Heck, the Get Go Cafe can put an outdoor area here, and there's a nice place for them to stop also and get additional customers.
What's the temperature of the Metro Parks to the idea?
They're aware of it, but it's when it gets closer, let them know. So the discussion has been right now between the city of Amherst and the township. I know one of the Amherst council people, Mr. Dombinski, when he was aware of this, he's had contact even prior to the get-go wanting this with the Metro Parks. Obviously, he wanted the whole thing conserved. He's heard from his residents about the sledding hill that's there. I know that the one developer that's interested, there's been two things, either preserving the existing sledding hill or potentially moving it and putting in a nicer sledding hill. So there's different options here. The township did put together a summary of what could be and discussed it with the mayor, and the mayor's presented it to his council. But ultimately, you know, there's some dominoes that need to fall in place. And so the first one is the get-go. The next thing is what the Port Authority does. And at that point, that's going to be the big trigger. If there's a developer buying this property to develop it and willing to donate back to the Metro Parks, then bringing between the Metro Parks, Port Authority, Board of Commissioners, and City of Amherst, all own property in there. And can everybody come together and say, this is all Metro Parks? And the Metro Parks understand it may be longer term, but we would like to have this interconnected so that all those different subdivisions can join in and have access to a safe pathway, and also an area that's going to be very pleasing. I mean, think about it. You will move from very developed area through, I've been down there multiple times. I remember when my son was very young, he liked to go down there and seek out salamanders. This will be a very appealing type park here that will definitely get use.
Jeff, would you like a cup of coffee?
No, thanks.
Okay.
I'm a get up at 4 o'clock in the morning kind of guy, and if you give me coffee now, that'll never happen. I'll be up all night.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Denny.
You want water?
No, that's fine, thanks.
the next one will be a little bit easier to lift for you. We've got the former Lorraine County Visitors Bureau. This is going to be a very simple ask. Right now, there's no property tax generated from the Visitors Bureau property. We've already got a JED, Joint Economic Development District, in place. We would just ask that you include this property as part of the JED. Realize this will help offset the township provision, predominantly of fire and ambulance service. And I know the county's intention of using this for something other than a visitors bureau, but we know long-term this may not be county property. So it's somebody else, and I know there's been interest in the past of getting this property, but if we get it into the JED now, there'll be a little income, not much, but at least it'll help offset the cost of the township a little bit, and if the county ever sells it to become private property, now it's in the JED, and it could be something that provides much more in the terms of tax revenue.
At this point, the finances and the real estate value, I'd say you're at least 10 years away from, you know, that building being available to anybody for private development.
Okay, and that's just, I assume, because of the debt that's on that property?
Yeah.
Well, that may be the case, but nothing ever hurts anybody by being overly prepared and early to the table.
So, and I don't know what the cost is to join the JED if we're not paying taxes in the first place, but
There'd be no,
yeah.
the only cost is time, okay? And the statute will require some, some process we have to go through, but we'd certainly like the commissioners to agree to it now so that as the township, because we still have to go through that public hearing process for the area from the sandstone development. It'd be nice if we could do all this at once versus having to do it twice. Okay, the next area where possibly could help us is, this is our yard waste management. The township operates an area for the collection of residential yard waste today, and I know this is assigned to David to come up with a way to try and reduce our cost here. When the solid waste district was first formed, we'd receive about $70,000. And over time, that's decreased, and then it kind of bounced around between $0 and $8,000. Now it's $0. Well, at the same time, the trustees have discussed ending this service to our residents because of the cost. Our cost is not only our personnel that constantly have to be moving these stacks of yard waste, but we actually have to pay to have this yard waste ground up and hauled away where it can be reused as either mulch or compost. We actually have some that in the past we grinded up and let the residents take that at no charge. But realize we have nobody available all the time to load that up for them. So if you walk back here, you're going to see mountains of what's now all compost and good rich soil because the natural vegetation loves it back there. But here you're going to see what the yard waste is that's been collected so far this year, since we actually had this ground up. And I don't recall, Chris or David, was it $12,000 our last bill?
No, I think it was closer to 18.
Closer to 18,000.
Yeah.
That's what we had to pay to have this taken away. But realize we're one township bidding this out to contractors, and there's a limited number that bring in these large tub grinders to take this yard waste away. It's 100% cost on the township, so you'll see the ask from the commissioners. I'm sure there's other communities doing the same thing, and if you can go to the next slide, Georgianne. I tried to get this so you can see this is just what's collected so far this year. Trust me, when the fall leaf comes in place, this is going to grow tremendously. Then it gets also, for those that still use live Christmas trees, they get put in here.
But you don't take anything from outside the township, right?
No, we don't take it from
Not
outside.
intentionally, not intentionally.
Yeah. You get some back there. We've all tried to stop them. There are security cameras now back there, and we've stopped multiple commercial people. We've also stopped some from outside. Usually the biggest one is commercial people that try to sneak in there and dump stuff off that they've already charged somebody to haul away. But you aren't going to catch them all, but we catch a lot of them. But if you go back to the other slide, Georgianne, with you there. Okay, there's actually a shelf out here. I couldn't get her to go back far enough because she was wearing sandals, so you can see how high that is. But this is going to grow much more. So the ask is going to be, well, what other communities are doing the same thing? And similar, the county engineer offers a great program to the township, and we've taken advantage of it probably for the last 6 years. Since the county engineer is responsible for a considerable amount of chip and seal road work and maintenance, they offered the townships to join in, and we go out as one collective bid. But then each area is responsible for managing that once that bid's out there. So whoever wins the bid, now it's economy of scale because they get a much larger area. They kind of work their way around, which, minimizes the remobilization of equipment as they go through. So we're not sure if the county can do the same thing with something like this with yard waste. We'll give the area, here it is to collect it, but can you at least get this thing bid out that can get a price better than us instead of $18,000 just for our community to carry this away?
Right now, most of the communities that are handling yard waste are doing it through Republic, and it sounds crazy, but if it's blended in, they can put it in with the landfill. And if it's separate, then they have to have a separate process for it. And right now, Republic is taking grass. Now, I don't know about this kind of stuff, but they're taking grass in with the garbage on a weekly basis and using it in the landfill because it helps produce additional methane gas.
Well, that may be, it will produce more methane gas, but again, if we go by the statute of conserving landfill space, you really don't want it going in there because
That's why they can't take it separate and collect it and put it in there. But if it ends up in the garbage that they pick up, the trash that they pick up, it goes in the landfill.
And we actually, and this is again, the county has helped us on this, just, realize there's things the county has done to help already. We're part of the Solid Waste Consortium. I think that's 13 communities. So there's the city of Avon Lake, Rochester Village, and then 11 townships that joined in on that. We bid that out. Republic's bid on that contract in the past, but it always tends to go to the lowest bidder. And in our case, that's Rumpke. Rumpke does take this yard waste mixed in also. And I'm telling, a lot of our residents do put it in their waste because, it's just a matter of they may not have a truck to haul it down in the convenience. Well, when you have those tree lots, you don't have enough containers to stuff those leaves in. So, and we do not have the personnel and the equipment to go around for curbside, leaf pickup. And I know some of the townships that are doing that now are regretting that they ever started that service, because once you start a service, it's hard to take it away, but it
Well-
becomes very costly.
Leaf pickup requires special equipment that you only use a few weeks a year. So you
Right.
have to invest in all this equipment that you're only going to use maybe 3-4 weeks in the fall. It's not cheap equipment either.
Right, and part of the revenue problem for the solid waste district, for the county, for the department, is that the tonnage going into the landfill is reduced because Rumpke and some of the others are taking their stuff to their landfill and not to this landfill.
That is, and that's unfortunate, but I'm
You've
never...
got the tipping fees. You've got the fees for taking it out of the district. Or you still got the district fees that have to be paid, Jeff.
The county fees, but the problem is that Republic doesn't get any revenue from that. All they do is pay the $1.25 that the county is due. They give the county that money on an honor system. They turn in what they've taken out of the county, and there's really no audit process for that. It's the audit system. Here's the honor system. But that changes the revenue package for the landfill, because they've got the overhead of running the landfill, and they're not getting, you take Erie County and Medina County, rubbish from Erie doesn't leave area, and rubbish from Medina does not leave Medina, because that revenue is critical to the landfill revenue stream.
Yeah, and that may be the case, and not arguing that, but Republic has the ability to bid on these contracts also, and the significant savings our residents, we can't justify not having this bid out and going outside the county as it does now. And I suppose if Republic wanted to work out some sort of deal on the side to have that dropped off at Republic's landfill versus where Rumpke takes it, I believe they're in Stark County where they take it to their landfill, more power to them. But our obligation was to our residents in this consortium, and we went, and there's two bidders because Avon Lake went with Kimball. And Amherst Township bid ours as an option because we have so much request for this curbside pickup of yard waste, particularly leaves. So we asked that to be bid separate. So we want people to understand we're still attempting, but we're not going to say no. But when we see the bid price, the added cost to pick up that yard waste, and because of the way the EPA regulations are, if it's put out separate, it has to be picked up separate, it cannot go in the landfill. We just can't justify the additional cost in addition to savings to our residents. You realize since we started this consortium over 10 years ago, the rate they are paying today for their solid waste and recyclable pickup is less than they were paying 10 years previous. Where can anybody point to something today that they're paying less today than they paid 10 years ago? And Amherst Township tried to initiate a consortium in the past. Very difficult, small township. Some of it was also not recognizing the players at the time. I was too new as a trustee. And trying to work with Republic at that time was Dave Kidder we tended to work with. But we included New Russia Township and the village of South Amherst in those discussions, and they were kind of strong naysayers. A little bit from Carlisle Township. I then learned that, oh, no wonder, the landfill's there and they don't have to pay for their waste pickup.
New Russia gets free trash.
So you can understand from their position, they weren't real supportive, and so it made it difficult in the parties we had together. And I didn't, why are they being so negative? And then, no, the light went on. But fortunately, when Keith Bailey was the solid waste director at the time, things got changed, and so now we have, this is where the counties actually helped us. They also help in overseeing the bidding process and providing space, so the district, the consortium district, pays their legal and consulting fees. Okay, that all comes out of the cost. So it's a give or take, but the thing is that county commissioners, I think, can at least look at what communities are offering this service, and is there a better way to reduce the cost or improve the efficiencies? You've been here a long time. We're just going to run through some of the other items quicker. Grant writing, this is a frustrating thing. We've just got part-timers or the elected officials themselves writing grants. We're not expert grant writers. You apply for these grants, and the majority of times you get turned down, which gets very frustrating. But that's one where I think the county can help. Cybersecurity and IT support, you have your own staff. There's no technical experts here. I realize even the counties run into trouble with the cybersecurity, but this is one where maybe collectively the county can have the right personnel, maybe bidding, maybe with their internal resources, at the bare minimum to do audits and inspections of the smaller communities, make sure they have the current software in place to prevent spyware and malware, check the actual system that they're using to make sure there's not anything currently present, make sure that people are taking the right training, which now the OTA does offer us online training, which is very helpful. And our township has paid, I think it cost us $150, was it, Chris? Because before you'd have to pay each time you took the training. We found out $150 to have full access was less money than we were paying today for each individual to pick up training when they were available. And sometimes you wouldn't sign up for the training knowing you had to pay for the training because something else comes up and now you can't attend. It's online, but you still have to pay because you took a slot. So with this $150, I don't have to worry, and now it comes up, I can just log on and get access to it. But there's
the
still...
cybersecurity issue is, I don't want to be a naysayer, but the commissioners can't even get the other elected officials to join us in cybersecurity for the county. And trying to take that out to the cities, the villages, and the township would be almost a nuclear effort when we can't even get our own county house in order. They don't play well together. So the commissioners right now we're about 6 months away from finishing the first wave, but we have closed the back doors and we've pre-tested the system, and the stuff that's under the control of the commissioners is on the home stretch rounding third. But we did not get a buy-in from the other elected officials with the exception of the courts. And the other elected officials are like, this is my domain, I don't want you guys to touch it, I don't want you in charge of our security, and they're not doing anything about their cybersecurity.
Well, you might, with the townships being much smaller and not having staff, maybe that's where the potential start. Not saying you have to, but you may regret that you ever asked us to present our concerns and where the county might be able to help.
I think it's fine, as long as there's a revenue stream that comes with the ask, we're fine.
Okay, and and this can even go to how do you encrypt your communications, but it's just something to consider. The stormwater management, flooding reduction, we're already working through the stormwater district. We'd like to see that continue. If we can go to the sanitary premium costs, this is always a frustrating thing here for township residents. You take whatever the in-city rate is, whether it's water or sanitary, and you pay a premium cost over what the in-city rate is. Fortunately, the county sewers in our township right now, you did get a reduction when Mayor Bradley came in the city of Lorraine from 150% to 130%. But we still pay 30% more than an in-city resident, and we pay an operation and maintenance fee to the sanitary engineer. Well, realize, from our perspective, we look at that, an in-city resident, their fee includes operation and maintenance, which includes a collection system and wastewater treatment plant. Well, if we're paying exactly what they're paying, and then we pay a premium on top of that, we've paid the operation and maintenance, now we're paying another operation and maintenance. It seems more like it's just to create a revenue resource or to sell a service. And I understand the city took the risk, the city constructed the plant, but I also know the revenue they use to construct that plant is taxpayer grant money, taxpayer 0% loan money, or taxpayer low interest money. You know who those taxpayers are? The townships aren't excluded from that. We pay the tax, and for thank you very much, you're going to pay a premium on top of it. So just so you understand how different sides look at it, it's like we paid to support putting that infrastructure in place. Now we got to pay additional to use that particular infrastructure. There's a question on the fairness. There's nothing wrong with paying your fair share. That makes sense, and we definitely want the treatment.
I'm newer than you, Neil, but my understanding is that that premium goes to cover the original capital cost by the Lorraine City taxpayers or the Amherst City taxpayers that built the facility. And that what you're paying is you're paying for the usage, but there's no money in the processing fee for the sewage, you know, and so they put the extra on to help recapture some of the capital costs because you're using up some of their capital asset.
Yeah, well, and again, that's something I can have that debate with those particular cities, but again, I'm just talking into the wind because...
Our solution to that is, to have a regional sewer system.
And I think that would be much better because then everybody pays the same, and it's not like somebody is using this as leverage to hold you up.
Right.
Because that's the way we see it, Jeff. And
I don't know how efficient Amherst is, but we've already done the work, and we know that Vermillion is facing $70-some million worth of upgrades because they have a huge technology problem. They don't have a capacity problem because there's only 5,000 residents. Amherst is up against the governor in capacity, but they also are going to face, they can't meet some of the future, you know, technological issues that are already on the books with a compliance date out in the future. Elyria is already running under a consent decree promising that the deadlines they missed that they will make up in the future, and they're not yet in compliance with their own consent decree.
Now, all this...
So we think the answer is to have a U-shaped trunk sewer system with a plant in Lorraine, and if Lorraine won't join, we're prepared to build a plant on Baumhart Road. Then you've got French Creek in the middle, and Avon Lake has agreed that they'd like to get out of the sewer business because they realize they can't be competitive at their scale, and they're facing a build-out in Avon Lake somewhere before the year 2030. Avon Lake will be like Bay Village, it will be built out. So for those reasons, the regional sewer makes the difference, and it's a huge draw for people like Jobs Ohio, economic development, and you got to provide sewers. It's a huge protection for folks like yourselves in the townships that you can't get forced into annexation to get sewers, okay, which has happened in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And so we think that's the answer to that. You know, and that would by nature get rid of that 30 to 50% premium that some are charging. And that's a premium on Amherst fees, and I don't know how they relate to Lorraine's fees or Avon Lake or French Creek.
Right.
But right now, it's likely they're all four different rates.
Right. Oh, they are. Did you have a question, David?
What happened to the ARPA money, though? But that was supposed to be for sewers. Some of that ARPA money could have been spent on plant upgrades.
I wasn't there, Dave, when they were giving 30 grand to Mitzi's Poodle Parlor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus that.
Removing lead pipes from
I wasn't
water
there.
lines and...
That's before my time, but I would have spent almost every one of them, and a new scoreboard at the Crusher Stadium doesn't make sense.
No.
There's no economic development there. And so at the end of the day, the city of Avon Lake, or city of Avon, all they got was a new tenant for the Crusher Stadium because it's got a brand new AstroTurf field and a brand new scoreboard.
Well, and I'll mention that one without going further from that.
All right.
Scoreboard and sign, you can see another sign, that's a private sign, digital sign, that didn't cost the taxpayers a dime. So it's kind of comical that money was even spent there. But Jeff,
It was an election year.
Yeah, the regional approach makes much more sense, you know, because the frustration here is our area, our community is carved up and says, well, this designated management area for this city and this designated management in that city, they get to service that area. And then you got to work through NWACA for any change. And as you pointed out, they either annex it or they don't service it. That's the option that you're faced with. So with a regional approach, we definitely wouldn't face that issue. The regional
Well,
approach...
The entities, the townships, the cities would still control access to the trunk. All the regional sewer district would do is provide the trunk lines and the treatment of the sewage. Okay, and the goal of the EPA in doing that is they want to limit the points of disposal into Lake Erie. They don't want 10 sewage plants all putting into a river or stream or the lake. They want to control it through a limited number, so that's why they're advising it to shrink. And today, I think you'd have a very difficult time when you were talking about quarry. You'd have a hard time selling a package plant to the EPA today.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the regional sewer is the county owns 3 package plants that we should have never been in the sewer business, the county itself. The sewer district would be its own entity outside of county commissioners and mayors and all that stuff. But part of our incentive to do this is we want to get rid of our 3 package plants because the expense and the efficiency is not, it's not at all a good outcome.
Well, everything you say sounds promising, and I hope it becomes a reality. You know, the environmental benefits, the annexation benefits, cost benefits for the users. And there's one other big benefit we get if it's a regional system like that is you actually, though it'll, as you said, there's going to be a separate board, you get representation or you get the vote on people. Right now, these entities, we don't vote the people that decide what these costs are and whether they extend it or don't extend it.
Exactly, you're a customer.
Yeah, we're a customer. But normally as a customer, I expect good treatment. And I don't mean by wastewater treatment, I just mean the way they treat you as a person. That seems to come and go depending upon who's sitting in the chair at any given time. So I really hope that the county's able to pull that off. The last item, because we've kept you here for a long time, ADA accessible restrooms. This is something where possibly the commissioners can help us in the future. The townships looked at this in the past. It's always, and we've applied for grants. It's always been a matter of cost. We are more focused on within the township park, since we have the soccer, we have football, we have baseball, you know, and we've got several pavilions that people use, but we use a porta potty because that's what we can afford. And it's also because of the location of the water and the sanitary service. But we know Workshop Players there, potentially as a partner, they've got an issue also that if you've ever gone to one of their shows, you got to go down the stairs to get to the restroom. Well, think about their clientele. Those stairs aren't always easy to manage. So the townships looked at in the past, hey, can there be a joint relationship where there's the restrooms that are accessed from the outside. They do have ramps right now for those people that need the walkers or wheelchairs. They may have to put some sort of canopy cover, but they could go to the outside to get to it. And whether it is electronically lock coding that we use or however we use it, our park patrons, so they'd have to walk up the trail there, could walk up to that restroom and actually use a restroom, particularly if you've got to change a baby somewhere, which nobody's going to do in the porta potty. They're going to do it in their back seat of their car right now. But they now have the nice, convenient area with potable running water and flush toilets. But that's one thing that...
Where's that at?
On Middle Ridge Road between Hidden Valley and Oberlin Road North. Workshop Players on the north side. There's a sign out for the Middle Ridge Road Park. It might be tough to see, you know, but it looks like there's just a little driveway going, you go down there and it'll just open up in the park with all active ball fields, and there's a little over 3 acres of conserved area that's all wooded with walking trails. but the Workshop Players is right next to the township cemetery fronting Middle Ridge. So if the restroom, the way their layout is now, is down in the one corner closest to the park, that would be the most likely place, which would then service both Workshop Players and the park. But that, I think there'd be the potential for grant funding to help put that together. It would require the cooperation between the two entities. I don't know, I know there was discussion that's currently owned by, the property is owned by Amherst Exempted Village Schools and long-term lease by Workshop Players. I know there's been discussion of Workshop Players purchasing that property. I don't know where that sets at this time. So if Amherst School still owns it, you know, you'd actually have multiple parties involved in it. But this is something that could benefit all the community, both patrons of the park and patrons of Workshop Players.
Right, and by the way, I don't know if the Ohio State University is that far ahead, but the Pennsylvania State University has about 8-foot diameter hexagonal handicap porta potties. Okay, so that, and there's two styles. One services multiple people, you know, instead of one per porta potty, and the other one has access almost like a handicap bathroom where you can get out of a wheelchair and get into using the, you know, the john, if you will.
Right.
So, but in a short-term solution to your problem with handicap, those are available. They may not be with a local vendor, but I think a little Google search will help you get where
We
you
do
gotta
have one handicap accessible porta potty.
Yeah.
We do. So we pay for two, you know, with the park usage we need to. But we do have one right now that is handicap accessible, but it's a porta potty and it smells like a porta potty. So if we can get something better, but we'll summarize things here for you. A lot of this is the financials of what we've been talking about here. We give the 10-year probability of any of these projects coming to fruition. You can see most of them are probably going to happen. Ones that have the lower probability is going to be the Sanctus Capital area because of sewer capacity, and in the quarry development because there's not even the infrastructure there. If we looked at it in terms of total students, we didn't include the quarry property, which is all in the Fireland School District, because that is just, you know, at this point, too difficult to determine since we don't know exactly what's going to go in there and it's subject to change. But we know within the Amherst Exempted Village School District, based on the projections, this will add an additional 163 students between K through 12. And if you really think about that, if we just back out the quarry property, adding over 1,000 residential units, we're only coming up with 163 students, that's a pretty good deal. Then if you look at terms of market value, not including the quarries, that's a little under $294 million. So if we look at it once the TIF sunset, because there are some TIFs in these areas, that'll mean in today's dollars, a little over $3.1 million to Amherst Schools and possibly $500,000 to the township. Now, I don't know Amherst Schools' budget, I didn't get that, but to the township, $500,000 is like huge for us, huge for us. We've had, I think, is it 1.4 million we've received so far this year, Chris? And we aren't going to go much above that because most of our revenue comes from property tax, and you heard Chris mention we receive the second half property tax, so we probably won't receive a whole lot more revenue between now and the end of the year. You know, there's some small fees and whatnot that comes in, some monthly gas tax comes in, a little bit off of cable service, but for all intents and purposes, $500,000 is almost going to be like close over 30% of what we receive today with just these, and most of these are probable and really going to happen. So, and that
Well, your low student count is largely due, as you well know, how many of these communities are reserved, they're age restricted, 55 and older, you know, no residents in the unit under the age of 18.
Right. Yeah, well, that's, you know, and this is, we're hoping that with this, that, you know, this will be far off in the future, but obviously they're catering to the baby boomers right now.
Yeah.
You
Well, that'll
know,
last for a while till all the baby boomers are gone, and then there'll be a surplus of 55 and older houses.
there might be, but it's going to be beyond just our township. But I think meeting with our comprehensive plan goal, we specifically state wanting a mixture of all types of housing so people can pick and choose and stay in place if they want to. And we've got everything going from the, $500,000 homes going down to manufactured home if you want one. We just had a inquiry, somebody wants to put in modular homes and some infill in our township, which obviously is permitted. That'll keep the cost down, make it a more affordable property, yet brand new. We love it when that happens because though it could place an additional burden on fire and ambulance, doesn't add any cost for street and storm sewer. We're already paying that cost, so now you've got additional payers coming in to help offset that cost for the existing property owners.
Well, and while you may have a bump in your costs for police, which for the township is the sheriff.
Right.
Okay, and we're entering those discussions after November 5th because we're going to get a new sheriff one way or the other. So we've kind of put off that, but that strategic planning is we're going to have growth in the townships, we have to have a growth in the road patrol.
Right.
We have to. And if there's no more money, then some of the other expenditures that are not necessary at the sheriff level need to be examined. But the fire department, or the fire service, in most cases, that's a fixed cost that's there already. And most fire departments have recognized that they can take some growth in residential housing without incurring additional cost, because the only difference is going to be, is the fire engine in the barn or is it out on the job? The cost is already there.
Yep. And the majority of our fire service is not structure, motor vehicle accidents. That's a vast majority. Or it's going to be the help for, whether it's heart, stroke, unable to breathe, fallen. So they're there supporting the ambulance service, but they've got to be there. The ambulance comes out and you've got a couple of people that vary in size from 120 to 150 pounds. They need help. And it's also when you've got to put in the basic life support there. So it does help having the fire department come out to support them. And we've got that all set up with our cooperative agreement. In this case, we currently use the city of Amherst for fire service. Okay. And then we're just going to leave you what you've got in your packet, just to summarize also in bullet point. If you can move it on, Georgianne. You will see 10 items now we just summarized, so you can take with you. Here's what we're asking for. We've covered them in each individual project and potential project, so it won't get forgotten. You now have something you can look back on, and it's become part of our public record.
Right.
Okay?
And some of the issues that you have that are shared with the other 16 townships will bear some introspection. But just remember, when you're looking at our budget and you're looking at the money from the county, it's not one township, it's 17.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're going to do for one, we have to do for both. But to your point, Mr. Urick, I think that's one of the reasons I ended up being a county commissioner, because the use of the first 2 years of the ARPA money was at best frivolous, and at worst it was shameful.
Yes. It's not something that's going to serve people over the long term.
Not at all. Not at all. So, but I am proud to tell you that we do have, for the first time in 24, we had a $2 million part of our budget that was for capital expenditures, and that's the first time that anybody at the county can remember having capital expenditures in the budget, a reserve, so that when we need to put sewers in someplace, we need engineering money, we need matching funds, we have $2 million.
Chris, how many times during our budget meetings have we discussed capital for equipment replacement and structure? You see her nodding her head because here the little township does that. And it's something you have to.
I just have one question before you leave. Have you had a conversation with Lakeshore Railroad? Do you know if they have plans of clearing the track north of Route 20?
Yes, they have plans, but I can't tell you what the financial feasibility is of those plans. I
What's
can
the
tell you
time?
that they are a very passionate group.
It's
But,
just,
but I can't tell you, I can't believe that the plan that they have in today's world has financial legs underneath it.
I was just gonna say, that because they cleared the tracks to just south of Route 20, and then they stopped and nothing's been done in
Yeah,
years.
they keep collecting donations, and as they get those donations, they acquire property, they clear the property, and they keep working on their project. But going from Black River Landing to Wellington to the fairgrounds, I can't even imagine what the price tag, what it would take to get that done. But they are strictly a charitable organization at this juncture. They don't have a revenue stream, they don't have a benefactor, a billionaire benefactor or anything like that involved. It's all
Pay as you go.
day-to-day, it's day-to-day donations and so forth.
Probably the best thing is, David, as Jeff mentioned, they're coming sometime in September at one of the commissioners' meeting, and find out when that is, try and
Yeah.
attend that meeting. And if you can't, the commissioners are real good about putting it on.
I happen to know
Video.
somebody that has the calendar for the administrators portion of the commissioners' meeting at the fingertips.
I'm going to make sure that individual lets us know when Lakeshore Railway is going to be at your
Yeah,
meeting.
we're trying to coordinate it. They would like access to Bob Latta. Congressman Latta's on our 5th floor. Because the new requirement for congressional members, both Senate and House, is that they have security in the building where they have their office. I think it's a bit of an overreaction to what happened in Washington over the last couple of years, but nonetheless, the Capitol Police Department, which controls the security for the Congress, has made that a prerequisite that they just can't take office space in an ordinary building. And we happen to have a sheriff's presence, although I wouldn't count on the sheriff if I thought my life was in danger, because that's a duty that's not signed up by the 25-year-olds. It's a duty that's signed up by no offense, because I am one, but it's signed up by the 65-year-olds.
Now, I understand that. I worked in a congressional office, and we did have some difficult people show up, but I always it was a long office, and I used to joke with my office mate, and I said, Dee Dee, don't worry. If there is a problem, I'll make sure I hit the panic button. I said, but don't get discouraged when you see my back as I'm racing out the rear door.
Well, the old adage, is, the two hikers got surprised by the bear. The first one says, well, let's get out of here. The second one says, well, do you think we can outrun the bear? And he says, I only got to outrun you.
Yep. Well, that's all right. Dee Dee let me know that if they come in the back door, she's going to give me the same treatment. But at least we had a panic button to hit.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I am glad to bring it to a halt, because we're about 6 hours away from when I get up tomorrow morning.
We're done. But thank you. We know it was a long time, but as I told you when you showed up here before the meeting, you may have regretted that you asked us.
No, it's just, I would have asked you to split it into 2 meetings, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We got where we're at, and I'll make another visit at some point before the year is out and bring you up to speed on the things that we are doing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
How old are you?
73?
73.
Young.
You got to be half senile to want this job. When I was 40, you couldn't even ask me to spell commissioner. I didn't even want to get that close.
Yeah.
But thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
And I'll see you at the office tomorrow.
I'm off.
You're off tomorrow?
Dave has treatment tomorrow. I'm with him.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Good night.
Okay,
Thank you.
good night.
I'm going to ask for just a 5-minute break, unless
I'm going to
everybody's
ask
good.
that we skip reports and we do only what we have to do, because I can't be here this
We
week.
will. You want to just keep going, or do you need a break?
if you want to take a quick break, bathroom break,
Well, I don't
that's
need
fine,
one,
but-
do you?
Okay, I do not
Anyone here need a
one.
break? Georgianne, you okay? Okay. All right, I agree with Chris, we're going to skip the reports here in the interest of time. We'll just run through the correspondence. Chris, our auditor state training, we still looking good on that?
Yeah, we were down to 4.
Okay, so you've got one more full, so,
I just sent out an email while we were sitting here, but one of them's Denny,
okay.
Colin, Cerny, Denny,
Well, as long
Colin,
as you've
Gino,
got it.
and Randy. We're down to 4.
We've got to get that done by September 28th, so we don't get an audit finding.
What is that?
The
The
auditors,
training that you need to take from the auditor.
it's fraud training, and it's all online, so you'll have to do that on the computer connected to the internet, Denny.
I sent you an email about it.
Well, I don't follow my emails, so if you're sending anything through email, just write me off.
That's the only, well,
Because-
you have to go to the link that's in the email
I-
to take the training.
I don't even go to my computer anymore.
Or you'll have to.
Well, there's the other option is stopping in here at the township. The auditor of state set this up so that you can come in here at the township, you can do the training here online, and then it'll just be, there's a statement that you have to sign off on to say, yes, you did take the training, because if it's done at the township, it's going to show up, you know, like someone here took it, but that's another option, Denny, so, you know, you may have to set that up between Linda and Morgan, you know, and just come here when you're at the
It's 8
township.
minutes long.
Yeah, 8 minutes long, I'd say give yourself 10 minutes printing it out. You'll spend more time just coming in, talking with people and getting set up than the actual training. It's real simple.
I thought I did that, though.
The training you have is that the township did internally when they first passed the law that everybody had to be aware of it and we sign off. Now you've got to do it online. But you can do it here at the township. You coordinate that with Linda. We did receive from the Ohio Department of Tax Appeals, and you've got a copy in your packet here, the final determination on that just under 5-acre landlocked parcel that the township owns along the Engle Ditch. We will be getting just under $1,200 remittance for the tax years 2021 through 2023 and going forward. Now, this is under the previous valuations. I didn't look at the auditor's new one, but it's about $400 a year. The Board of Tax Appeals denied our request for remittance for the years prior to 2021, so we only lost 2019 and 2020 since we acquired the property in 2019. Patricia Short and the auditor's office did confirm they received the notice from the Ohio Board of Tax Appeals. So Chris, they'll be sending you a reimbursement. I think you got a copy of that email also. And then we just have to watch it as those come in the future to make sure that there's no property tax on that. David did provide for Lorraine County Stormwater District a stormwater fee credit on this property with our township hall and the property at 7491 Oberlin Road. There was a 10% credit on that. It'll amount to, it's much less than what we were hopeful for, but still just under $275 a year is better than nothing. Doesn't appear they're going back for any reimbursement for past years, but at least going forward, we'll get that. I'm not going to go through reports other than make sure everybody's aware there was a change. Sandstone joined Ambulance Board District at their meeting on August 21st. Is that the November 7th meeting time was changed from 4 p.m. to 11 a.m. Some of this is since Brandon Damaki is going to has become the new City of Amherst fire chief, is adjusting for his schedule. He still works on the fire department in Bay Village, and this was agreeable between the village of South Amherst, and I told him, well, I can make it work. Dave Freeman, we got to let him know if that'll work for him. Hopefully it does. And
That was,
the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District, November 7th, and it's on your agenda, Chris.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, and under reports, under 8A, the time changed from 4 PM to 11 AM. You already know OPWC Round 39 for Rustic Hill was turned in. I have one item we have to get through, and I know Georgiana spent significant amount of work on this, and this is for a zoning amendment. And I want to read through just a second. This zoning amendment, so people are aware, there are some areas here that I'll say are substantive changes. The vast majority, though, are spelling corrections, section reference errors, grammar corrections and whatnot. So over the years, different people have been marking up their book as you come across these things. So that's the majority. But I'm going to bring this resolution forward so we can get it on the floor. It's a resolution. I'm making the motion that we amend the text of the Amherst Township zoning resolution to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare, provide clarifications to eliminate unnecessary public hearing delays, and to ensure compliance with the Ohio Revised Code and to correct various spelling, grammar, and section reference errors. So that'll be my motion.
Second.
Let you take roll call, Chris.
Lynch,
But you know what? Hang on a second.
discussion first.
Yeah, I got to do the discussion. I'm rushing it because I know it's been long. Let me first cover the substantive changes. The substantive changes were, we added in the prohibition of human, animal, biosolids, waste, water treatment facility sludge, or industrial waste storage, burial, or impoundment. The sole exception shall be the storage of either human or animal waste that's generated right on premise. Where we've seen where this has come up in different communities in the townships, where people want to either send in sludge pits, whether it's the monofill, whether it's biofill, whatever. So we just we do not have anything in our township for the prohibitions, so that's getting this into our zoning. We specify the approval process for plan unit development, sign and fence design standards and criteria. Recall the township trustees agreed, yeah, this should be the same as the amendment process, the preliminary plan, because right now our zoning says that this needs to be approved, but it doesn't say what the process is. So this is just updating the zoning resolution to match what the trustees decided at a public hearing. Don't expect that to be too applicable because, or don't know that there'll be a whole lot of plan unit developments beyond the quarry property. Provide for alternate design and site plan review process when the township architect position is vacated. We've run into that. We don't want to be stop in the middle. David did go on the search here for an alternate architect, and we fortunately were able to get one when our previous architect had resigned. We also, at the request of the Board of Zoning Appeals, because they only schedule meetings on an as-needed basis, our zoning resolution currently gives them only 20 days to do that. They had actually asked for 30 days, and the county prosecutors agreed that would be acceptable, but we need to update our zoning to allow them that authority. We increase the time interval for holding of a public hearing by the Board of Zoning Appeals from within 20 days from receipt of an application to 30 days. We also updated the Board of Trustees authority, and this just to make compliance with the Ohio Revised Code, from unanimous to majority if the board denies or modifies a recommendation of the zoning commission. So that, you know, in our zoning talks about if anything becomes unlawful, the rest of the resolution's good. But we've been, as a matter of course, following the law. This is just cleaning up the resolution. So those are the substantive changes. There is a summary sheet of everything that's changed within the zoning book. I've got a copy of red line that I'm going to give to you, Chris, so that you've got it for the public record. David, if you can pass that down. And if she hasn't already, Georgianne will send out, so I know she has already. She sent out for the trustees review ahead of time. I believe she's included the zoning chairs, So you can see it there. There'll still be the requisite public hearing before the zoning commission and the trustees, and also a review by the Lorraine County Planning Commission. So if you've got any questions, get those put together ahead of time, and they'll be able to be addressed. So is there any other discussion? All right, now roll call, Chris.
Lynch.
Yes?
Abraham.
Yes.
Gehring.
Yes.
The number?
That was 8-9.
8-9.
8-9,
Yes.
8-9,
Yep.
20, 24.
Okay, I've covered everything I needed to cover. Was there any other business? Hearing none, our next meeting will be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, September 10th. No need for a work session. We have no one left from the audience. Any need for an executive session?
No,
Hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
so move, or second,
Lynch.
Yes?
Abraham.
yes.
Gehring.
Yes.